Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Dread Time Stories. I'm your host, Dr. Phobia, and tonight is my favorite night of the year, Halloween, October 31st, or Walpurgis Night, whatever you want to call it. It's that special time of the year when the barrier between the living and the dead is at its thinnest. Now, I could have gone with stories of supernatural creatures and supposed happenings, but I thought for this particular night, why not go with some true stories? Stories that are on record, that have been factually proven. So, I've compiled 3 stories of murders that have taken place on October 31st. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy tonight's tale, the Halloween special. Greenwich, Connecticut isn't a place you'd expect to find a body. It's one of the wealthiest suburbs in the US, the place where George Bush Sr. played as a boy, and where a dozen US senators are raising their own kids. But in 1975, amid the sprawling estates, multi-million-dollar mansions, and manicured lawns, the blood-soaked body of 15-year-old Martha Moxley was found on a cold Halloween morning. The discovery shocked the town. Martha had been beaten with a golf club so badly that the club had shattered, and then she'd been stabbed in the neck with one of the jagged pieces. Then her killer had dragged her 80 feet and dropped her off in her own backyard. All eyes soon turned to a 17-year-old Tommy Skagel, the nephew of Senator Robert F. Kennedy. According to reports, Martha had been out with her friends the night before Halloween, and they had all gone to a party at the Skagels' house. Tommy had left the party with Martha late at night, but she never made it home, even though their houses are only about 450 feet away. Although the police had their suspect, they never made a conviction, and the gruesome Greenwich Halloween murder remained a cold case for over 16 years. In 1991, reviewed investigations into the Moxley case brought it back to the public's eye. But it wasn't until 1998, 23 years after the young girl's brutal murder, that a killer was named: Michael Skagel, Tommy's brother. According to novelist Dominic Doon, Michael had been spotted a few times climbing a tree outside Martha's window where he would watch her. He was infatuated with the girl, and in 2002, Michael Skagel was finally convicted of murder by a grand jury. But the story doesn't end there. Michael Skagel was later granted an appeal, and in 2013, he was released from prison on bail. Like he did on any given Sunday, Devon Griffin woke up early to go to church on October 31st, 2010. He was staying the weekend at his father's house, and before church, he stopped by his mother's to grab a shirt to change into. It was about 9:30 a.m., and the only person he saw around was his stepbrother, B.J. Lisk. B.J. greeted Devon cheerfully and asked how long he'd be gone, a question that struck Devon as odd since he and B.J. didn't get along and never talked much. After church, Devon went back home and played video games for a while. B.J. seemed to have disappeared, and the house was uncharacteristically quiet. Figuring he ought to go wake everyone up since it was 1:30 p.m., then Devon went to the master bedroom and saw his mother still in bed with her husband, William Lisk. The blanket was over their heads as if they were trying to shut out the afternoon light. Devon started talking, hoping to rouse her. When he got no response, he pulled down the cover. Police were all over the house within hours. Devon had inadvertently uncovered a murder scene. Sometime in the early morning, 24-year-old William Lisk Jr., whom the family called BJ, had shot his father in the head 5 times. Then he turned the gun on his stepmother before beating his stepbrother to death with a claw hammer. The latter two were Devon's mother and brother. BJ was picked up by police at the family cabin and taken into custody. He was found guilty of the 3 murders and sentenced to life in prison. For hours, motorists simply drove past the woman hanging from the tree. They saw her. She was hard to miss, dangling 15 feet almost directly over the road. But considering the season, they just assumed it was another morbid decoration. It was 4 days before Halloween, and Frederica, Delaware was littered with glowing jack-o'-lanterns, stuffed witches, and plastic skeletons. This body, however, was real. Police were called to the scene hours after the woman was first seen, and it's likely she'd been hanging there all night. Police only revealed that the woman was 42 years old, and it looked as if she'd hung herself. This isn't the last time a Halloween hanging has been disregarded as decor. In 2015, a woman in Chillicothe, Ohio, was hanging from a fence for hours before anyone mustered up the curiosity to see whether or not she was actually a real person. Well, before I bring this video to a close, I gotta say that last part of the last story really hit home for me, as my haunt is in the Buckeye State, Ohio. So, be careful out there tonight, guys. You never know what you might run into. So, like I always say in closing, check under your bed, look in your closet, and sleep with the light on. The life you save may very well be your own. Happy Halloween, everyone.